Alright, draft physics video. Dealing with trolls. Yes, Pyrrho. And the comment trolls and whatnot. So anyway, gotta play this stuff, I suppose. Yeah, but these aren't arguments. So I'll play it somewhat fast to get to like the 3-minute mark is where he just starts lying and lying and lying and lying. Just preposterous lies.
All right. Well, trying to have been watching some of Aaron's comment videos, and it's really, I think it's sad how impossible it's become.
Whatever that even means. Again, nothing will be articulated here. What troll are you defending? What comment are you defending? Why don't you pick one of the idiotic comments to defend?
And yeah, a lot of people in the bail are talking to Gary over the years and so forth. But whatever.
Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah, it's by reputation. So, and again, if I never spoke to you or Hothladay, I wonder who would be, asshole.
This is definitely a new level. I mean, first of all, he's very, very reactive to words. Like every word is a pretty weird philosophy of science somehow.
Yeah, I just don't have a whole lot of interest in somebody pointing to philosophy videos regarding making a counter-argument to a theory proposed. I just think that's incredibly bogus. Yeah, I'm offering explicit theoretical explanations, a theory of evolution, say, as a creation theory. And then some idiot says, well, no, we have to talk about, like, for example, your idiotic personal philosophies where, no, we can't talk about evolution. We have to talk about we're a brain in a vat. Or we have to talk about how we're a dream a God is having. And I'm like, no, I want to talk about what the evidence is in the environment that we actually live in. And what does the environmental evidence point to? I really don't give a shit about your your cartoon theories about being super characters or fairies or Tinkerbell's orgasmic vagina goop or something. I don't care what you think you are. I want to have a conversation about what the actual reality points to, the ones we can see and touch and feel and interact with. The real world. That's the place I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about your fantasy worlds.
Oh, I'm not stupid. I never do philosophy of science with a stupid subject. It's like he talks about philosophy of science all the time.
No, I don't. I really don't. I talk about how the evidence is what logic's made out of. It's facts. The facts take care of themselves. I even did a description of it. I said, look, it's just simple. It's a connect the dot thing. And if you have lots of dots, you don't have to do any connecting. And if there's only a few dots, well, then it gets a little tricky to get the detail right, because you have to go in a little bit to get the smile right or some other kind of thing. So you have to have a little bit of cleverness in how you connect the dots. That's all there really is. And we're just saying whose picture of what the image looks like is better. The one with the wacky, jagged, silly dots of bent space and Huygens and Heisenberg magic, or my rational theory.
Philosophy is a bad word. It's when you talk about how science is done. You say science should be done this way. It should be honest. It's not honest. Here's its role in society. This is how it should be concrete.
Well, look, it should have something called integrity. That's right. Scientists shouldn't be little girls who jump to silly conclusions and see snakes everywhere, or penises, whichever one scares them most. Yeah, they shouldn't be hysterical, doing hysterical science. And that's what it looks like. It's all this contrived crap. They just keep making up stuff to make their made-up story make sense.
That's in the subject of philosophy of science, but Gary is not very interested in how words work.
I'm making an argument for an explicit theory. At this particular time, yes, the discussion really isn't about how you conduct a trial. The actual business is, let's have the fucking trial. So make an argument. I'm willing to hear your arguments. I don't want to hear arguments about how to argue. Remember when you did that with Hothladay? And so instead of ever arguing, right, you could never do your little stick ham thing because you could never agree on how to argue. So you couldn't even have a discussion about a subject because you couldn't even agree on how to argue. Fucktards.
Or words he's learned from other people, the definitions that come with those words aren't important. They can be very vague. Everything's a metaphor. He said that the stars are shaking because of Brownian motion.
No, I didn't say the stars are shaking. I'm saying we see the stars shaking because we are moving. That's the visual limitation. That's why, see, theoretically a microscope should be able to work all the way down, and a telescope should be able to work all the way out. But it's only a theoretical thing because, yeah, in the real world, all this little bits of motion is erasing all the details.
Everything that wiggles, that's called Brownian motion.
Well, yeah, Feynman would basically make that argument. Everything jiggles, that's right. His favorite word.
Everything that bends, that's diffraction, no.
Everything that bends is diffraction is yes, that is true.
Brownian motion is not anything wiggling. It's not meant to be any particular phenomenon.
No, it's a particular phenomenon that affects all molecular structures because the atoms and the molecules are vibrating because of the influences of the environment are chaotic and constant.
Diffraction is a particular phenomenon. It's a wave phenomenon, as a matter of fact.
Well, it is not, as a matter of fact, and I haven't even heard Feynman talk about Brownian motion being a wave phenomenon.
You know, and he's a hypocrite as can be. He says, oh, they just didn't.
Okay, so he says I'm a hypocrite, so that's okay. Let's write down these words. I'm a hypocrite as can be because I come up with an explanation that's rudimentary and simple, like polarization. I argue that there's polarized force. That's hardly a bold statement. You know, we know that polarized light exists. We know that magnets have poles. We know that the Earth has poles. We know this idea of polarization is, yes, conceptually crude and simple and fundamental in the physics. And he's comparing that to dark matter and Huygens. Fuck you.
That these mathematical things and whatnot and virtual particles to fit the...
Okay, so he throws in a whole bunch of stuff. Mathematical things and virtual particles. The two things aren't exactly the same thing. I don't dislike most mathematical things, but yes, mathematical functions that are just contrived, I think, are bullshit. That's right. So if the symbol's too wacky and the name of it's too wacky, then presume it's just wacky. But there's a big difference between that and you know, some sort of mechanical description of a function.
Their theories. Yeah, just like he invents red and blue arrows to turn at right degrees and whatnot. To fit the theory, that's what you're supposed to.
Yeah, again, so let's just understand. I invented polarization. Hardly a bold and extraterrestrial style UFO kind of function. Huygens involves a mystical ability of a photon, one of the simplest things in the known universe, to project in a sense a kind of radar in front of itself and have that thing act in the universe, and then the photon uses the information from that actor to decide where it's going.
Dude, the problem is his system doesn't actually fit the evidence.
Okay, so that's a claim he's made. Now, no one's pointing out what doesn't fit the evidence. So by not fitting the evidence, that means his interpretation of the evidence. So he says you must believe that photons are waves, and you must believe that our evidence is nail in the coffin conclusive on that subject. There is no option to reject that as a theory and to say you don't have sufficient evidence of any wave function. And your own examples demonstrate that in that single slit in water waves have nothing in common with single slits in light waves.
Their constructs do, and that raises the question.
Okay, their constructs do not, and that's what's been pointed out. So again, another lie about what the evidence is.
The photon itself is a particular thing. The quantization of energy, those were also... Hey, they came out of a model that then worked, and people are like, well, do they correspond to something real, or are they just mathematical mechanisms? Yeah.
They correspond to what model that when worked. The particle model has never been the accepted model, because, frankly, when they had the original model, they didn't even know how to describe any of this stuff in terms of its proportion to the rest of the atom, because they didn't know what atoms were. So their model couldn't be anywhere near complete. I'm just saying now we can make a more complete model of particulate physics, which is a huge difference. But again, what exactly, where are you claiming that the particle theory failed for some substantial reason?
Stagecraft behind the scenes to make what's on stage look right.
Well, what else is Huygens? So, I mean, I've already been over this, but I mean, so now he's going to start, really aggressively lying. But I mean, I've shown you videos of professors at universities and Richard Feynman, and I've shown them misdescribe what happens in the two-slit experiment in the sense that they'll say, look, there's two slits, and if we cover one of them, you just get a lump, and if you cover the other one, you just get a lump. And we've known since Newton, over 300 years, that you don't get a lump, you get a pattern. So they misrepresent the truth, and that's okay. Misrepresenting the truth is okay. That's good science.
And there's ways to dig into that. And, Gary, it's fine if he does it, but it's not fine if other people do.
Well, again, where he makes the accusation, where's the evidence backing it up? Oh, that's right, there is none. He's a troll. You're just a fucking lying troll. These are personal attacks against my integrity, fuckhead. You're the one lying about me. I'm not lying about you, asshole.
Do it. Other people do it with math, which means it all has to fit together a lot better, and it's a lot harder to just wave your hands and say, oh, wait, I solved that problem Feynman was bringing up with a new word.
So he's saying that my explanation of kinetics and explaining how physics is little tiny things, and Feynman talking about raindrops was totally inappropriate because forces aren't raindrops. Forces don't interact with other forces. That's a known fact. So force creating ether drag is kind of, Feynman could have, I think if he had a little bit of physics imagination and thought about it in terms, look, he can invent, Feynman's okay thinking about virtual photons creating magnetism, and yet he couldn't think of some kind of virtual photon solution to the problem of drag for a, how is it described in the 300-year-old theory? Ultra-mundane particles.
And the self-delusion, because it's too much for it to be a lie.
Oh yeah, right, whatever. The self-delusion, it's too much to be a lie. So I've perpetrated some lie. I wish you would give me a direct quote of my lies. So isn't that the ultimate coward? They make a claim about you being something, this aggressive claim against your character, and yet he can produce no quotes of the lies. I'm showing you his lies, okay? He's going to overtly and directly say things that aren't fucking true. And I've proved them not to be true. I've explicitly shown people testifying to their not truthness, and he's going to keep claiming it.
Saying things like, well, they won't do the single slit experiment.
Okay, I never said they won't do the single slit experiment. See how that's just a lie? What I have said is they haven't described the single slit experiment accurately. They'll always show it as being, oh look, it's just this and this and this. Yeah, there's nothing to see here. Because they, yes, obviously have the slit width too narrow. And all they have to do is widen this little slit just a little tiny bit, and all of a sudden they get a pattern that's exactly like the two-slit experiment, except it's a little bit brighter in the center. And that's the only difference, fundamentally.
The single slit experiment shows diffraction.
Okay, so he's saying it's diffraction. I've played Professor Lewin, the professor at MIT, the most famous professor at MIT, actually. I've played him stating overtly and aggressively that there is no diffraction here. It's exactly the same function. He claims the same function. Single slit, double slit, it's exactly the same function. There isn't something else happening with the single slit. It's exactly the same function. I've played him saying that.
Light is a wave. And the fact that electrons diffract, that shows that electrons are waves.
So again, now we're not going to use the word interfere in pattern. Now we're going to use the word diffraction and pretend that we can have a rational conversation by saying I'm going to call it diffraction when I want it to be, when it doesn't have to be quantum, and then when it's quantum, I'm going to call it interference pattern, and yet it's the same exact pattern.
Because diffraction is a wave phenomenon.
Well, again, so now again he's claiming diffraction. The only way you can have a diffraction, that is essentially a absorption and readmission at a new angle, a non-regular reflection, let's call it, is through a wave function. So again, we're back to the same argument that I'm just saying get rid of the word diffraction. I don't care. Get rid of it. All right? If you're going to claim you own the word and the word only relates to one thing, the spreading of a wave, then I'm still going to say in the single slit experiment you have no evidence of any wave spreading in the single slit with water. I mean, no spreading that creates bar patterns. No interference pattern created by such a mechanism.
The fracture pattern is what you would expect from a wave phenomena going through a single slit. Of course, it has been done. You've seen it, Tucker.
Okay, so there. It has been done. You've seen it. Okay, so he's backing up his claim that if you treat the two experiments the same way, that is, say if I have two dots, I mean, I'm making water waves to create diffraction, and we know that they go out this way, and that these two water drops would interfere with each other. Okay, and create a pattern out here that would go something like this. All right, we know that's what's going to happen. But we know if we jiggle this one twice as fast, we're going to change that pattern. And we certainly know that if you do a single slit with water waves, with regular flat waves at a regular frequency that is not too agitated, okay, without turbulence, okay, that you're just going to get this. This is what's going to come out the other side. And all the physicists would agree that's what's going to happen. All right, that's the fact. You're not going to get a bar pattern. You're not going to get anything like the single slit pattern in light. And he keeps lying that the evidence says something else, that the evidence says something else, because he can put fake water waves in here. That is, he can agitate this water at a frequency the medium can't absorb or transmit, and it creates diffraction in the source. So he creates a diffracted source and then sends it through a slit and calls that an honest experiment. So he treats one experiment completely different than he treats the other experiment and calls that honest science. And he says that's a legitimate way to do science. That's good evidence. And that doesn't bother any of you fucking cunts.
Done. So we have a serious amount of self-delusion where you're looking right at...
Okay, so it's a serious amount of self-delusion for me to say if you're going to do an honest experiment, you keep the environmental circumstances the same. If you're going to claim that there's single-slit diffraction, okay, in water waves, then do the same thing to the double-slit. Put in hyper-turbulent waves into the source on the double-slit experiment and show me that you get the right pattern. Show me how your math predicts the right pattern then. You lying piece of shit. You're just a liar, a fraud, a fake, a phony. You're defending a fucking lie. You're defending goddamn fake fossils, for fuck's sake. This is a fraud.
Fire and say there is no fire. The religious conviction that Gary has is...
Okay, so again, this reversal of the circumstance, right? They're actually saying that evolution is a religion now. So if you believe in evolution, that's a faith religious theory. That's actually what these fucking cunts are doing. So now it's a religious theory to say you've distorted the evidence. So as soon as I say you've distorted evidence, I'm now a religious person.
Belief in his own common sense, his own personal common sense.
Well, again, see, he keeps taking this back to common sense. No, I'm adding up the evidence. I'm saying there's no evidence for your Tinkerbells. There's certainly no evidence for your Mighty Mouse and your Bullwinkle and your Top Cat, okay, living in his garbage can. There's no evidence of your Huygens, your Heisenberg, your wave theory. There's no nail in the coffin evidence that any of this crap is the reality. Your bent fucking space moving things. And there's a better theory, one that unifies all the forces. And yeah, that logically I recognize, oh yeah, what do you go with? The complex pull thing that doesn't make any fucking sense, or the simple push force that explains all the forces.
And by extension, human common sense. So that the universe, of course, has to be common sense to him, or else you're an idiot.
No, the universe has to conform to rules, and the rules don't get more complicated as you go down. They get simpler. That's the Occam razor's reality of how basic things function. Okay? The atoms aren't more complicated. Well, that's the wrong way to say it. The elemental function. So you're claiming that you believe in fractals or some other kind of dopey stuff, but even if you believe in fractals, you know that the underlying relationship is still simpler than the complex form that's created out of that underlying relationship. And so you know the kernel is still simpler than the complexification you make by multiplying it.
And frankly, Hypothetical is showing a little bit of this particular thing, though, by no means any of these problems.
Yeah, well, Hypothetical is a disgusting hypocrite because he watches you lie and he doesn't do anything about it. He just pretends that Pyrrho's a good sport. So, you know, Hypothetical is a lying piece of shit just as bad as you.
For all the other problems I've been talking about. But about mocking things like, virtual particles and stuff, because I don't know why. They're all structures. Yeah, there's cabling behind it. You make a system. You don't, to make a mathematical model, hey, when I throw a ball, it's in a parabola. It doesn't mean the ontological implications of whether the parabola exists in real space or as a form and all of that, those are just still issues on the table, right?
Yeah, whatever. So again, this is just rationalizing bullshit talk for the fact that the model isn't right. And you know, it's just glue. It's God of the gap glue. So instead of finding the right answer, you just engineer fake things. And you're never going to fix it because, again, as I'm pointing out, the reason why you have to use virtual photons is because you took all of the energy that's in the universe basically out of the universe by claiming gravity was caused by bent space. And if you just put all that energy back in the universe and allow it to function, it will explain magnetism and electricity. And then you don't have to use virtual crap.
First accomplishment is finding the mathematical shape. And then you can worry about how much that's a device, why that is the case, what's really going on. Nature does not have to figure idea of common sense. And
well, again, it does in simple ways, and that's what the whole law of conservation basically dictates. That's the common sense, is that if there's a change in direction one way, there's an opposite and equal change in direction the other way. That's the basic concept of reflection in the first place. Something goes in one way, it comes out another way. Well, that means that something else was going one way, and now it's going another way. That's the common sense. You don't just make up crap to create fake reflections.
Should try to achieve being simple, but sometimes it's our minds that are not simple enough. So looking at the Earth and realize it's not stationary like it looks. You're not stationary like you look. You're spinning around.
So these are all just fake analogies, right? So instead of using any real arguments from what actually has been argued, no, he just keeps using these straw man arguments that somehow we don't know what gravity is or something. Or we don't know that the Earth is smaller than the sun or some kind of other trivial bullshit. So the typical tactic, put a straw man instead of the real argument being made. So keep pretending the argument is about that nonsense when no, the argument's about something much more explicit, which is you have very weak evidence for your theory, besides the fact that your theory is extraordinarily unexplanatory. It doesn't explain a damn thing. Bent space doesn't explain how gravity works. It doesn't explain anything about attraction and repulsion, and it's of no utility to any other element of attraction and repulsion in all the other parts of physics. It's a stupid explanation. It doesn't fit with the rest of the universe.
At these high speeds. That's not common sense. At first, when you first heard it, centuries ago or whatever. But it can't become common.
I don't know, I'll play this part slower, but I don't know what he just said, but it's obvious bullshit. Yeah, I mean, another one of these assumptions that we have to believe that his time dilation, as he understands it, his general relativity allows him to, give light two momentums.
Driving a car with the stick shift is not like second nature. Practically intuitive at a certain point, but it becomes that way. Things can become simple once you start to understand them.
Yeah, again, what does this have to do with any specifics of this conversation? And as Feynman's famous for saying, if you think you understand quantum mechanics, then you don't understand quantum mechanics. So I can hoist you on your own petard jokes there. Nobody seems to find it at all intuitive ever. Because it is absolute nonsense. It's a silly model of reality.
It wasn't simple to understand how the Earth could be round and upside down people are on the other side of it. But now that's pretty straightforward.
Well, like, yeah, it was understandable to figure out how it was flat and how any of that ever worked either. How you didn't, why couldn't nobody find the edge?
So it's a religious conviction to think that you're...
Okay, so again, anybody who has a theory opposed to this asshole's unsubstantiated and theory that they constantly misrepresent the evidence for, so they cheat the evidence, create fake evidence, that is, they don't do an experiment under the same circumstances and make comparisons, so they cheat the evidence, then they lie about what the evidence says, and then they call other people religious. What a troll.
Human intuition is...
And again, they keep using this word intuition as if this wasn't a thoughtful explanation. So anybody who has an opposing theory has a trivial, superficial process of thinking. So, like I said, the poor French guy who originally came up with particle gravity got ridiculed and harassed and negated and discounted because of a trivial criticism. And if they had thought about it a little bit, if they had used a little bit of thought, they could have fixed the problem with that theory. And instead of doing that, they just ridiculed and discounted. And that's all you're guilty of here. You're a prosecutor for the Inquisition. All right? You are the one relying on faith. You have shabby, crappy, weak evidence, and you're claiming the authority to dismiss and diminish anyone else who thinks otherwise than you. Anyone with an alternative theory, you're worse than the fucking Inquisition, for fuck's sake.
Necessarily, like, that is what... That a thing that doesn't... That your intuition doesn't like a thing means that thing is stupid. No, your intuition could be the alternate thing that is stupid.
And again, this is only because you understand how to drive a stick shift and it's the way to go and blah, blah, blah. Whatever that means. So that's his implication, that he's doing this superior thinking, when in fact I'm going to argue, and history was going to point out, that these are the people with the small, narrow minds who were on the fanatic crusade to preserve a fantasy theory because it had entertaining Bullwinkles in it. And that's all this has to do with. They like a fuzzy universe because then they don't have to account for the harshness of the real universe. Okay, but lying scum just lied about he lied about what the evidence demonstrates. He lied about what crappy evidence he defended as real evidence. Again, if you do an experiment, this is just so basic. You compare two things, and then you change the circumstances for the one thing to preference a result, to cause a result. And you call that an honest experiment. That's as dishonest as it gets in science. That's the textbook of how to be a science crook. Alright, so on to other comments. I don't know if I should bother with the, Hofladay did an idiotic video about a light beam, so I guess I'll just do that real quick. So he does this. This is, I guess, supposed to be some sort of, again, these are the games they play. So instead of doing anything explicit, they just keep turning everything into, they so pervert and narrow the focus. Like I said, why would anybody be talking about, well, the starting point is, I think, therefore I am, when nobody does that. Nobody arrives on Earth and says, I think, therefore I am. Because to do that, they first have to learn what vocabulary is. They have to even learn what the word think is, which is a really complex concept. So to know what think is, you have to know what brain is. You have to know how brains function. You have to know they're made out of biological goo. And you have to understand what other organisms have one. A ton of information is built on that word think. And so it's just such a pile of shit. And so here's another distortion where he talks about, all right, so you have two individuals on, let's say they're on different planets. You might as well put them really far apart, 1 zillion miles away from each other. And you're way far away with a very powerful laser beam, and you can make a little light circle on this planet, or you can make a little light circle on this planet. And it only takes you a millisecond to switch, because this angle is so fucking small, because these are so far away. that you can just go like this, boom, boom, and the circle goes from there to there. And Holiday's argument is the circle travels all the way, this zillions of miles, and therefore breaks the speed of light because it moved a zillion miles faster than the speed of light. And obviously that doesn't happen. Everybody rational knows that light is a force, it's not a material thing, and this circle is just a bunch of little dots of energy, okay? And the fact is that only one dot will hit here as it moves, and one dot here, and one dot there, and one dot there, and one dot there, as it gets to this other place where there's going to be a circle of light. And there will be no circle that moves from here to here. This circle won't move this way. That'll never happen. No light goes this way. This light goes this way. And that's all that happens. So he just creates a fake circumstance, and, you know, as if it's somehow a debunking of something. And it's just a trivial playing with words. More illusions. More let's fake our way to an answer. It's just disgusting. Scumbags. Oh, that's kind of a long comment. I don't know if I want to do that one yet. Alright, we'll do this. Start at the bottom, I guess. The bullet experiment is interesting. I read that's one of the reasons they took heavy caliber guns off fighter aircraft in some instances due to the aircraft's ability to change its direction post the firing of the projectile, that it was possible to fly into the projectile. Well, that sounds a little bit unrealistic, but I guess the problem is they don't they would eventually catch up to where their bullets were falling. So, you know, they would shoot bullets up at a target and the bullets would be coming down, and then they'd fly into the bullets coming down. Something like that. But anyway, that is funny. The bullet on the back of the train will leave the barrel at normal velocity. Well, there's no normal velocity, so it will leave the barrel of the gun. Well, you're saying at normal velocity, which would be the speed of a bullet leaving a gun, right? So you're right. The only part I thought was funny is this: that the bullet really won't be leaving; the gun's leaving. As would the bullet at the front. So yes, the acceleration of the bullet would be a tricky thing to calculate post leaving the barrel. Well, like I said, it wouldn't be. The bullet would have no acceleration. The barrel has the acceleration. So what it really is that it's just kind of the opposite effect. Like you always think about the bullet pushing away from the gun, but what's really going to take place is the barrel's going to run away from the bullet. So it's going to essentially absorb the entire explosion of the bullet by moving away from the explosion. So it's basically going to suck the entire explosion with it, and the bullet's just going to fall. Well, obviously the bullet's already going 10,000 miles an hour this way, so it's going to push it, you know. First it's just going to give it a little stop moving, and once it stops it, then it's going to fall straight down. I don't think the bullet would ever leave the end of the barrel. Well, it has to, because the barrel's leaving 10,000 miles an hour. The train is maintaining its velocity constantly at 10,000 miles an hour, but immediately the bullet is released at 10,000 miles an hour, it is already technically decelerating before it reaches the end of the barrel, albeit by a very small amount. Well, it's decelerating by a lot, actually. If the bullet is going 99 miles per hour halfway down the barrel, it's still going slower than the train going in the opposite direction. Well, the point is the train is still going 10,000 miles, so it's guaranteed that the bullet's leaving the gun because the train's leaving. And the bullet's just going to stop. You're going to decelerate at 100%. The bullet was going 10,000 miles an hour with the train. The explosion's going to make the bullet go zero. It's going to take away all of the bullet's acceleration. And so the bullet's going to just be dead, and it's going to fall straight down. Right. That's correct. Alright, if light isn't a wave phenomenon, how would you explain Lloyd's mirror? Okay, so I did look into that. Interesting experiment, but obviously it's another one of these experiments doesn't demonstrate anything about waves. So, I mean, if you think you have an explanation, I mean, the first thing I want to know is what's the pattern look like with no mirror? Okay, so if you have a black plate here and you just absorb the light, then what's the pattern? So what they do is they take a single slit, small aperture, so you're casting a pattern onto this area. So you have a bar pattern you're casting in like that. So some of the bar pattern is going to hit this wall, and then some of it's going to reflect off this mirror and go back up. And they claim, okay, that this is interference here. Well, I would claim to you if it was waves, then this would terminate the wave function right here. So each one of these reflections would be the end of the wave function. So you'd have a hard time explaining, because it's, and this is also something known from science, that this reflection is always perfect. Angle of incidence in is equals angle out. So how would your wave theory fix that? Because this you couldn't change. So I don't know exactly where, you're saying it proves waves. I'm saying, no, it proves exactly the opposite, because waves won't work in this circumstance. Where's the interference? The interference can't be happening here, so it has to happen after the reflection. Well, after the reflection, this is now a new source. So this source, you can't count it from this distance to this distance. You're going to count it from this source. But anyway, it doesn't. I don't see anything significant in terms of it demonstrating waves. Again, electrons can explain the two-slit. It can explain this. There's also something even simpler than the double slit that could be done. Split a laser beam into two paths, making sure they have the same polarization and they are synchronized, and just aim them at the same place. Well, that won't work. So, I mean, first splitting things, we're getting into this whole complex thing. It's one thing to reflect something, it's another thing to send something through a beam splitter. So you're saying use a mirror to split a laser beam into two sides and then reflect those two back into a single point. I mean, I think it's always going to be a fact that you're going to get some phase change, because you have to get those distances exactly right and the angles exactly right. And that's difficult to do. They're all hitting surfaces that are vibrating at a different frequency. The two mirrors will not vibrate exactly the same. So you're going to get some phase change from that alone. Not saying it isn't explainable in terms of particles. Well, you did hear say that. But I'd be hard-pressed to find any satisfying explanation. Well, I don't understand how it takes... It's easy for you to imagine some fake wavy thing interfering with itself. So, I mean, that makes sense to you. So if I use single photons in this experiment, it makes sense to you that you get a pattern over here. Doesn't make any sense to me. Alright, where was I? Moving the mirrors at a distance would shift the interference pattern. Well, obviously it would. About the light going off perpendicularly. Number one, with regards to the arguments, you see planets where they used to be, not where they are right now. Yes, the light would go with the objects. Well, again, you did not. That's saying exactly the opposite. You see the planets where they used to be, not where they are now. That means the light goes. Here's the planet's. Oh, fuck! I can't believe you have to go over this stuff. Here's the planet's arc. Okay, the planet's moving this way. You see the light from where this is you. This is what you see. Okay? You don't see this. You see where it was, because the light left here, like this. That's how it got where it's going. And as it moves, okay, the light, changes its orientation, obviously. But you won't see this light, for whatever the distance is. Let's say it's 3 minutes away. So it takes 3 minutes for this light to get to you. Well, by that time, this planet's over here now. I mean, how can you fuck this up? Yes, the light would go with the objects. No, it doesn't. But it would go off at an angle. Oh, you're back to this shit again. I mean, it's just so fucking retarded. It can't go off at an angle. You can't project the light ahead of itself and say, well, okay, this object is stationary. I'm the moving object. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop the light this way. That doesn't happen. I mean, it's idiotic. Oh, shit. There's just no point. If you see the light coming at you at an angle, you'll see the object where it used to be. Again, you can't see it where it used to be. You'll see it where it is now. So if it comes off at an angle, you'll see it where it is now. Fuck. You just keep changing the rules. Not where it is, so there is no problem. Oh, there's a huge fucking problem, idiot. I mean, I can't believe he just keeps doing this shit. And now he's talking about aberration, which is a whole different fucking subject. Oh, gee, this is just another one of these brilliant animations. So he's doing the same damn thing. It's the same bullshit animation he's already shown, which is absolute bullshit. Oh, I mean, there's just no point. So he's calling this perpendicular light. And that's not how it happens. He's just basically saying, no, everything always goes forward. As soon as something's moving, you never shoot light perpendicularly. It always goes ahead of you. Like you're throwing baseballs off a train. No. 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 Such bullshit. There's no point. There's a point where I'm just going to block you if you're going to keep doing this shit. It's an idiotic, in my opinion, it's an idiotic argument. Your argument doesn't work. You have to have the same, you can't change the rules and say, okay, I have a laser beam, it shoots light straight. But when I'm moving, it shoots light this way. I mean, that's just bullshit. You can't say, oh no, it shoots straight. No. As soon as you start moving, it shoots crooked. No. Bullshit. Alright, anyway. I didn't want to continue this. I already told you to shut the fuck up about it because we went over it and over it and over it again. What you're saying is absolute crap. It's made up crap. This isn't perpendicular light anymore. I mean, this thing has a fucking shape, cunt. Okay? This is a fucking laser. Now you made me drop the damn thing. Look, it's a laser beam, alright? The light comes out of it fucking straight, shithead. It doesn't come out of it crooked. Fuck. Alright. But it seems appropriate enough. The reason I was talking about light carrying momentum was because momentum is something that consists of magnitude. Now, yeah, fuck you and magnitude. Fuck the word magnitude. It's not a scientific term. It's a pile of shit. You cannot separate the two. Fuck you. Yeah, you can. I mean, it's just idiotic. Light is a constant, jackass. It's the fucking thing has already been... Most of science agrees on that one, in essence. Okay? It's a quantizable element. Alright? And all you can do is change the frequency of it. You cannot separate the two. Fuck you. And when you concede that light has momentum, well, fuck you. And it also entails that direction is associated with the momentum. I've pointed out it's momentum. It's the simplest kind of momentum. It's one momentum in one... It's a one F, okay? Because it's in one fucking dimension. And you're claiming it can move in 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions. Which is a pile of shit. It's got one dimension. It goes one way in a straight line, fucker. Not in a crooked fucking line, you jackass. I mean, look, we're at a stopping point. There's no point in this conversation, okay? You don't understand rules of logic here, but you're just going to sit there and claim that I'm just going to say it does it. No evidence that it can do that. No evidence that laser light starts coming out crooked. Anyway, I talked about this in a comment with Superior Mind. If you agree that, 1, emitting light makes you have less mass. No, I don't emit any of that crap. No, I don't. And 2, light has momentum. Again, the momentum of light is already a quantizable thing. Of course, it has mass. It has the smallest possible mass. Then momentum conservation automatically says light leaving perpendicularly will only cause the ship to go forward faster. How the fuck is that anything called rational? I mean, realistically. So what he's claiming now is that when a photon leaves the metal surface of the ship, okay, and now is in the air, that somehow the ship will gain forward velocity because it's lost mass. When in theory, it's actually the mass that's carrying the velocity. And that if you give away mass, you'll lose velocity with every bit of mass you give up. Because it's the mass that's actually holding the velocity. But anyway. Will only cause the ship to go forward faster. It is observed to say that shooting light up will make you go faster. I don't know which, again, he's back to the shooting light up. The argument was kind of clear. So, I mean, you want to do the experiment going up and down instead of left to right. Well, that's your prerogative, but that's not the experiment I'm describing. This is something that can be supported by the transverse Doppler effect with the Moss-Barner rotor experiment. Oh, another bullshit experiment, no doubt. Which also conforms to the predictions of special relativity. Well, that makes it your thing, okay? And you say it conforms because you have crappy animations, not because you have anything called evidence. You have fake evidence of, oh, look, I made an animation that does it. Well, that doesn't demonstrate that this is what the real world does. Show me a laser beam shooting crooked. Move this laser beam in a jet F-15, and then show me how the light coming out of it comes out crooked. Well, anyway, it's probably enough. What am my time? Yeah, I'm too pissed off now. It takes all the fun out of it. This fucking turd. Alright. I mean, how many times do you have to go over it? Simple fucking experiment, and he just keeps lying about it. So let's just draw it one more time, just for the sake of... Look, you're in a spaceship. You're going half the speed of light this way. 1/2 the speed of light this way. Okay? Forward. You're going to shoot a beam of light across the ship. There's a hole in the side of the ship that the beam of light is to go through. The simple problem is that this hole is moving half the speed of light away. So for every 4 feet this way, you go 2 feet this way, in the sense that you'll be behind here. Because the hole is going to leave at half the speed of light, and by the time your light gets to this side, the hole can't be there anymore. And his argument is that when you shoot the light, it goes this way, and then goes through the hole in the future. And the 60 symbols guys would argue that the observer outside sees the light do this. This is what the observer outside would see. Certainly that's not going to get you into the hole. Okay, seeing the light go backwards isn't going to get the light into the hole. Because the hole's going this way. I mean, it's just bullshit. Alright, that's enough. Till next time. So, I'll get to the other comments some other time. I just hate these fucking people. Idiots.